welcome back to the Busy Corner. It's lesson 44, I think, and I'm going to show you how to make a checkerboard cowl in the round on your open hoops. I am using 2 strands of Woolies Thick and Quick stripes. These are short skeins, only 87 yards. So I had to use a Russian join at rows 18 on both strands to join in 2 new skeins. Look that up on the internet because that's the best way really of joining yarn, that you won't even see it. Now, the original pattern is from Lion Brand, and it had called for LB Natural Collection wool, which they don't make anymore. But other than that, you can use the pattern just as it is when you do it on your open hoop. So it called for 64 stitches. That's a multiple of 8, and that's because the pattern is knit 4, purl 4, repeat from the asterisk around, and you do that for 4 rows, and that's what gives you the little squares. On rounds 5 through 8, you start with purl stitches for 4, then knit 4, and repeat that all the way around. Every 4 rows you switch, and that's what gives you the little checkerboard pattern. So each check has on one side knit stitches, and the other side you'll see your purl side, and if you lose count of your rows, it's always easier, of course, to count the purl side. So if you look at the little zigzag of stitches, that's 1 row, that's a 2nd row, 3rd, and 4th. Be sure you look at my lesson 43, which shows you how to correct a mistake, because I often did so. This pattern's so easy that it's hard, and you're going to mess up. I had to go back and actually correct 2 whole rows of knitting because I got off at the pattern switch. You want to make sure on those rows in which the pattern switches, you have to do the opposite stitch. So on the little hoop, just as a demonstration, we'll go back to this in a minute, I put 22 stitches on here. It can be any multiple of 8 for this pattern. And I used a slingshot cast on. The tail's around my thumb, the working yarn's around my forefinger, and I have to put on 2 more to make 24. We're not going to go all the way around. I just wanted to remind you how to get started. So now you've got on the desired number of stitches. Turn the ridge of your cast on row to the inside so that you are not going to twist your stitches. Make sure it's all to the same side. And then just turn your hoop. Turn your hoop. Put on your stitch marker. Contrasting yarn will work just fine, and then holding the hoop between your knees or in your little hoop stand, but I think it'll be easier for you to see this way. Hold the hoop there, and you begin with front stitching 4, and so just take off that first stitch, and this is where you'll join the round by just going in. And it's a little trickier on your first. See, it doesn't want to go in there on your first round through because that stitch is a little smaller. There's 1, and here's your 2nd. If it's easier, just reach your finger down in there and hook the yarns. I'm using 2, so you want to be careful. But when you make your new stitch, pipe it in this fashion when you're working in the round like this. Don't do it the same way as when you are working the rods. The new stitch goes on just like this. Imagine it going down face down, and you want to keep working your stitches around to the other side. Just push the new stitch up, and the front stitches will look just like they do on the rods if you hold it like this. Underneath you'll see the bar, and on top, if you bend it down, you'll see the V's. And just put it like this. Whoops. See why the sticky mat helps on the first time. Once you've made those first 4 stitches, you'll know those are front stitches because of that bump. And now you're ready to do the 4 back stitches. Put your yarn to the rear or up, however you want to think of it. And I think it's easier when you're working with the hoop to make all of your back stitches behind the hoop. Just push your yarn up into the old stitch. In this direction, you'll see a V. In this direction, you'll see the bar, or what I often call the bow tie sign. And then lay your stitch face down onto the right. So take the stitch off the left, lay it against your working yarn, push the working yarn through, lay it face down, and you want to do that. I've only done 2, so you make 2 more. The first 4 rounds are exactly the same. In other words, you want to knit, you want to put front stitches where front stitches were, and you want to put back stitches where back stitches were. And once you've knit, and again, this is, I believe, 18 rounds of, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've knit 5 sets of 4 rows, and I'm about to begin my last set. And so my piece now is heavy enough, I can just hold it like this without having to put a sticky mat or anything down. My stitch marker is here. If you pick it up and you're confused about what side you start with, remember your working yarn is always with the new stitches, so it's to the right. Now this begins a new set, so I need to reverse the stitch. So if my last stitches, when I push the yarn, or push the piece through the cowl, I can see that these were all the bumps, or the bars. That's the purl side of the little stockinette block. There's the bar on that stitch. If I hold it like this, I see all the V's. And I need to do the opposite. So, put this back up. So, if I made that stitch so that the bars are on this side, and the purl side is showing here, and the knit side is showing on this side, then I know I need to do the opposite. And I need to go in the back and create a V as it looks from this side instead of a bar, or this side instead of a V. It needs to look like the bow tie sign. I need to do the opposite. And this is where you'll get messed up. And what I would do is this. Say opposite 1. Whoops, I don't see the bow tie sign. It's on this side. There's the bars, and I know I need to do a back stitch. Opposite 2. Opposite 3. You can look at both sides if you need to. Or you can look at this side and say, well, I see a bar. I have to do the opposite. I want to make a V. And once you've done that, you won't be able to tell right away. But if you pull this down, you can see that you don't see those bumps under that stitch. And I know those were back stitches. And now I need to make front stitches. I take this off, and like on the rods, I see that bar that I call a bow tie sign. If I look at it this way, I see V's, like knit stitches. That means I did that as back stitches, and I need to do a front stitch. Why? If I go through here, notice what happens. I had a bar, now I have a V. On this side, I had a V, now I have a bar, and that's just what I want. I want the opposite, because that's how I switch the pattern. This is where you'll get messed up. And that's why I say you can fix your stitch just like you do on the rods or on knitting needles. And as you work around, so don't be panicked if you make a mistake. Now here, again, here's my bars, here's my bar. So I know I did those as front stitches, and I have to make a back stitch. Back stitch. Back stitch. You can look, you know, my habit is to always look at the other side. But if you hold the yarn in the other direction, I'll show you here in a second what I mean. I'm used to looking at the other side. Alright, there's V's. I know I need to switch. I need to make a bar, if you see what I mean. And now, since it's Halloween, I'm going to keep going around the hoop. Since it's Halloween, your special Halloween treat is that I'm going to stop talking, and our knitting today will be accompanied by our favorite cameraman's original composition. He's playing all the instruments, and he recorded it, and it's called Devil's Dance. So thanks for watching, and happy Halloween.